Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Welcome back to Spanish Lessons with Professor Jason. And what I want to do in today's lesson is talk about the location of places and specifically how to request or ask for directions. Say you're a tourist and you want to know how to get to the cathedral or the museum or the plaza or whatever. This lesson will teach you how to request directions and also how to interpret the most common words, phrases, and elements that you're going to hear in those directions from native speakers. So what I've done is I've prepared some slides that show some of the questions, some of the key places that we would go to, and then an example of directions, and then I sort of take it apart and explain it piece by piece for you, okay? So here we go. Let's take a look at these slides, and I hope this makes sense. Now, one thing to mention quickly is that when you're asking for help from other persons, you want to be as polite as possible, which usually means using the usted form of address and the corresponding verb conjugation. So, first of all, to ask where something's located, you're going to say the following. Perdón, ¿usted sabe dónde queda el or la and then the name of the place? Perdón, ¿usted sabe dónde queda? Now, to ask for directions, you're going to say the following. Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar a o a la? One more time. Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar a o a la? That's how we ask for directions to a place. Now, one important thing to keep in mind when asking for directions is that you want to be thinking about something very specific, a specific street, destination, or attraction. So what I've done is I've made sort of a quasi-fictional list of places that you might ask about. And there's about 16 or 17 of these. I'm just going to go through them so that you can see what some of the key vocabulary is and also work on your pronunciation a little bit. So we could ask for the location of, for example, La Calle Gardel, or La Catedral San Tomás, or El Estadio de Fútbol, El Museo de Arte, El Teatro Municipal, El Correo, La Biblioteca, El Mercado Central, El Hotel La Palomita, El Restaurante Mar Azul, El Parque de los Héroes, El Barrio Miraflores, La Plaza Colón, La Playa Boca del Cielo, El Terminal de Buses, La Parada de Buses más cerca, o La Estación de Metro Cerro Blanco. Again, these are just examples of places, some of them real, some of them fictional, that you could ask the locals where they are, okay? Vocabulary practice, pronunciation practice, but I'm going to use some of these in the examples that follow. So, if you wanted to ask where the art museum is located, you would ask, ¿Usted sabe dónde queda el Museo de Arte? If you wanted to know where the Boca del Cielo beach is, you would ask, ¿Usted sabe dónde queda la playa Boca del Cielo? Now, to get directions, the question's slightly different. So to get directions to Colón Plaza, you would ask, Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar a la Plaza Colón? To get directions to Mar Azul Restaurant, you would ask, ¿Usted podría decirme cómo llegar al restaurante Mar Azul? Alright, now we're going to get into the principal example of this lesson. And that is going to be asking for directions to St. Thomas Cathedral. So if you wanted directions to La Catedral San Tomás, you would approach a kind-looking local and say something like, Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar a la Catedral San Tomás? Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar a la Catedral San Tomás? Okay, so what you're looking at now is a generic, completely fictional example of a possible response after you've asked for directions. The person might say, Sí, cómo no. Primero tiene que tomar la calle Libertadores hasta la avenida 25 de Mayo. Después, doble a la izquierda y siga derecho unas 3 o 4 cuadras hasta llegar a la calle José Martí. Luego, doble a la derecha y camine 2 cuadras más hacia el norte hasta llegar a la Plaza Colón. Es muy grande. La catedral queda al lado derecho, cerca del Teatro Municipal. Okay, of course there are dozens of possible variations or ways that directions can be phrased, but most of them use similar elements to what we've just seen. So let me go through this and point out a few things that we see here and that are typical of these kinds of directions, all right? This will give you a general comprehension of the phrases most often used when you request and hear directions that you need to interpret, okay? So I'm going to walk you through it phrase by phrase. Here we go. All right, first of all, you can see on this slide I've highlighted the expression sí como no. Sí como no simply means yes, of course. Moving on to the next slide, the expression tienes que means you need to or you have to or you should. On to the next slide. The verb tomar, as in tomar la calle, here it means take Libertadores Street, but tomar can also be used in the sense of to take a bus or to take a subway, all right? The adverb hasta, which means until, so here it means until you get to Avenue 25 de Mayo. The adverb después, which in this context means next in the series, next. The verb doblar, which we see conjugated here as doble, the usted command form, which coincides with the present subjunctive form. Doblar means to turn, so doble means turn. And then the phrase a la izquierda, which means to the left, or doble a la izquierda, turn left. Here we see the verb seguir, used in the phrase siga derecho. Now again, we see the verb conjugated in the usted command form or present subjunctive. Seguir means to continue. Siga derecho means to keep going or to continue to go straight. The phrase unas tres o cuatro cuadras means 3 or 4 city blocks. Cuadras are blocks. The phrase hasta llegar means until you reach or until you get to. The adverb luego, like después that we saw earlier, means next, the next step in the process. The phrase doble a la derecha means to turn right or turn right. The verb caminar, which we see conjugated here as camine, again in the usted command form or present subjunctive, means to walk. So, walk 2 more blocks. Camine 2 cuadras más. The phrase hacia el norte means toward the north or heading north, but it could just as easily be hacia el sur, toward the south, hacia el oeste, the west, or hacia el este, the east, the other directions. The phrase queda al lado derecho uses the verb quedar, meaning it is, and lado derecho or right side. So queda al lado derecho means it's on the right side. You could also hear, of course, queda al lado izquierdo, it's on the left side. The phrase cerca de means close to. The opposite, far from, is lejos de. Alright, now let's take a look at another example, okay, which includes variation on these same words and phrases that we just talked about. This time we're going to request directions to go to the post office, right? El correo. Now, do you remember how to ask or request directions to go somewhere? You're going to want to say, remember, something like this. Here we go. Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar al correo? Once again the question. Perdón, ¿usted podría decirme cómo llegar al correo? And a possible answer is a second example. Sí, claro. El correo está muy cerca de aquí. Tome esta misma calle hacia el sur hasta llegar a la Avenida Italia. Doble a la derecha y camine unas 3 cuadras hasta llegar al Parque de los Héroes. Luego, doble a la izquierda en la calle Mendoza y después de caminar 2 o 3 cuadras, va a ver el correo al lado derecho de la calle, frente al terminal de buses. Okay, your assignment then is to see if you can figure out those directions, okay? With a little bit of practice, you should be able to use the information that I've presented in this video to ask for directions and to understand and interpret the basic instructions you're going to hear from those kind-hearted locals. I wish you lots of luck in your travels. And as always, I welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. So please let me know what you think about this lesson. All right? This has been Professor Jason. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hasta pronto.